All right, so there's many discussions coming out now about how this decision might affect other Métis communities, and the provincial Métis organizations are talking about, how this might influence, future cases.
Sure.
So what does this mean in terms of a larger implication of Métis in the Métis homeland?
Right. Well, one of the things I think that a close reading of the case reveals is that it's not a pure legal victory for the Métis. The court makes some findings that I think will be used against Métis claims in the future. And the particular issue, I think, is in relation to Métis title. So no one has been quite clear what Métis title might mean, legally speaking. The courts have said we know there's something called Aboriginal title. An Aboriginal title is the right in land of First Nations people. And does that apply to the Métis? That is, what kind of land rights do the Métis people have? That was a small part of this judgment, was trying to come to terms with, did the Métis people of Manitoba have Aboriginal title or Métis title to land? And the majority judgment pretty clearly suggests that there's going to be difficulties in future Métis title claims, because the court says this isn't Aboriginal title. The Métis people of Manitoba were holding their land as individual landholders, not as a collective. And if they weren't holding their land as a collective, that means they didn't have Aboriginal title. And since they don't have Aboriginal title, then these kinds of title cases under Section 35 of the Constitution will probably fail. And I think that may be a conception that comes back to work against a number of Métis cases outside of Manitoba in the next decade or so. So that's one aspect of the judgment I think that the government is pretty happy with, and that they're going to be relying on in future cases. I guess the more positive aspect, though, from the Métis perspective outside of Manitoba is another fairly important, I think really critical line in the judgment, in which the court recognizes that the reconciliation of the Métis people to Canadian sovereignty hasn't yet occurred. The court says that this is an ongoing process, and it's a process that is of national and constitutional importance. That's really a critical finding, and it's one, again, that I think is going to be important both in the political sphere for the Métis people to say, look, the Supreme Court of Canada, the highest court in the land, has recognized that we still have some distance to go to reconciling Métis rights and Canadian sovereignty. And also legally speaking, the idea that the honour of the Crown, that constitutional promises, that Section 35 Métis rights are all going to need to continue to reconcile Métis rights with Canadian sovereignty. I think the court knows and understands that that's not done yet. Maybe we're just at the beginning of that process. And I think that's an important idea and concept for all the Métis of Canada, and for the Canadian government as well.